There it is.
Like only about 5 seconds.
All right, friends, welcome back to the Board Game Nation live stream. This is our third attempt at this. We will be bringing Doug in just a second, but we have made a couple of minor adjustments here. I'm hoping that the audio for me sounds a little bit smoother at least, and we've tried to adjust some of the levels from last time. I should also mention that Memphis is still having some weather issues. At the moment, we're under a boil water order. But we're hoping that that doesn't mean that the ice is going to also take down the power lines. If that does happen, we're very sorry. We will call you back as soon as we get power back. But so hopefully stick around for that. It's always exciting here in the Bluff City of Memphis. So again, thrilled to be here. Thank you all very much for joining us. How many people have we got right now? We've got 34 people already. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Looking for comments to come in here and let me know whether or not my audio sounds right. And what will help is if there's somebody to compare it to. Let's go ahead and bring in our good friend, Mr. What's your name again? Oh, right. Mr. Doug Thorpe. How are you doing, sir?
Good. Glad to be here again, Gary.
Doug always gets a round of applause. It's great to have you here. All right, friends. Well, let me know what you're thinking about. We've got ourselves some music playing in a weird spot. I'm not really sure why. Where? Oh, I see. There we go. I started my own live stream on the other screen. So I'm an amateur at this. I don't know what to tell you. I'm still working on how it works. What I'm also trying to do here is get the chat up and running because I'm having a little trouble seeing that. I'm not sure why, but let me make some moves around here and get situated.
I felt like this game was a close one. This was a tough one, man.
Yes. So first, let me say game 3, I wanted to publish it last night. I wanted to publish it this morning, but it has been a beast to work on. It's been a lot of fun. It was a really great game. Thank you again to Donnie and Ian. They were really great competitors, put up a really good game. If you haven't had a chance to watch the round 3 video, I'm sorry about that, but it is now available. I finished rendering it just a few hours ago, so it is hot off the processors, as they say. So we'll hope to get the round 4 videos out a little bit earlier before the live stream starts. You know what I mean? It's nice to have people to be able to watch the videos. So well, cool. So yeah, so awesome. So trying to figure out why all of a sudden my chat is not feeding through here. Ah, there it is. There you are. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Amateur mistakes. Okay, that's better now. Now I see you. Thank you, Dan, for letting us know that the audio is good. How is Doug's audio? Doug, tell him what we won.
What we won?
Well, we won a spot in the final.
Oh yeah, we won a spot in the final. That's right. Hard match. I think it was a very interesting game. What I want to know is, do you have a total amount of, like, a dollar amount for what the Axis lost and the Allies lost in that game?
Ooh, I
If
do.
we had that but I'm very interested in that number because I just felt like we got brutalized and lost tons every round. And I know when you're on, whenever you lose something, it's painful. So that's sometimes that perception's off, but it just felt like it was rough.
I do have that number, and let's see if I can put it on the screen here. We did lose a lot of material in that game, and the total in game 3 loss for the Axis was 689, and that is really the result of the final of the last couple of rounds. But the Allies lost 570 overall, which is a ton for the Allies to lose in a single game. So it definitely played a role in that. So we'll start here. Mike Olds, hey, how you doing? Great semifinal round. Could you summarize the overall strategy of the Axis in one sentence from your perspective? I was able to watch round 3 at 1.25 speed with ease before this. You know what? You know what you get? You know what he gets, right? You get a little glockenspiel for doing the reading. I like it, even though the video is late. I appreciate you doing that for us. So you get the first question. So Doug, we'll leave it for you. How would you summarize the Axis strategy here?
In one sentence. Can it be a run-on sentence?
Use as many commas or semicolons as you need.
Yeah, I think Germany capture Krylia and get a shot at Russia, comma, Japan hold on to its victory cities.
So I will also take a crack at it in one sentence. What we did in round 2.
Yeah.
Right. So if you watched our round 2 video for the Axis, the general strategy there was to squeeze the center, right? Was to put as much pressure as possible on India and on Moscow, Leningrad as possible to force the Allies to defend India. And we said, a lot of people asked us, like, well, how do you defeat that? And our answer then was, now I realize, yes, this is more than one sentence, but the question that we got was, how do you defeat that center squeeze? And our answer then was, the Americans will get in there and they will force the Axis to do something else. And that is what the Thorpe Thump does, right? The Americans dropping every dollar and the UK dropping nearly every dollar in the Indian Ocean and in the Pacific Ocean forces the Axis to do something different. So people ask, like, how do you beat that? This is one way to do that. There's a kill Germany first strategy that will also do the same thing, but it is difficult. It is less successful, I think, than a kill Japan first in tournament play. When you've got longer to play, then a shuck to France or to Scandinavia, those are really popular. I also am a big fan of the shuck to Morocco because it forks Rome and Paris, which I really like to do. So anyway, again, Mike, thank you so much for doing the reading and for the question. That was really great. Did you have anything to add to that, Doug?
Yeah, not really. I mean, you said it, the American pressure. I mean, again, if you watch the video, America is what blows up the Japanese Navy and really takes. I mean, Britain was already starting to break out, but it took all the pressure off, and then the pressure was all on Japan at that point.
Yes, yeah. So it definitely, boy, we got a pretty wide variety of folks here. We've got folks here from Denmark. We've got Alaska's here. Chris Topher, welcome. And Australia is back in the house. Good to see you guys. Thanks for being here from, I think it's like a month and a half ago. I can't remember, or are you guys 3 weeks in advance? I can't remember how it goes, but the time thing always screws me up. So, but either way, thanks for being here. We have a new addition to the Board Game Nation kind of team here as we are kind of mildly folding together here. Our good friend John Bosch is in the chats and is volunteered ever so kindly to be a moderator, so he can jump in and try to answer questions as well. We've got go ahead.
There's a question there about the bidding for round 3. I think that would be very interesting to talk about.
Yes, I agree. And I've got a note here to bring Doug up a little bit. Okay, so yes, I've now brought Doug up a little bit. So the bidding in round 3, like, it blew my mind. So I made a whole video about bidding for Axis and Allies, and one of the things that I said was that even after all of the seeming advantages that the Allies have in 42nd edition, 3 players versus 2 players, they have a much stronger economy. And even after all of that, the bid in tournaments always, in my experience up until this round, had always gone to the Allies. So when we started and they said, we want to play the Allies, we'll give you the Axis. I think they said +2. And
Yeah,
I'm
that's
trying to
what I
remember
recall.
exactly how it went, but it was very strange. Let me
Yeah,
see if I have it written down.
which
Go
is
ahead.
basically taking the Axis as straight up, because you can't put anything on the board for 2, and we weren't willing to do that. We thought that we would be better off giving them 3 and us playing the Allies. Our strategy's been successful in the past, and so it was interesting that the bidding that went that way. But I make the point in the video. I think there were at least 2 other games that I'm aware of that the bid went money to the Axis, and maybe even more than that.
Yeah. So I've got it in my notes here. Basically, what happened is we won the roll. We deferred to them. They offered us. They want to play the Allies. They offered us 2 to play the Axis. We said no, and we offered them 3. We said we want to play the Allies. We'll give them 3 to play the Axis, and then they accepted it and placed the infantry in Belarusia. So
Yeah.
now, one of the reasons why I think they did that is that they have seen either the Thorpe Thump or they've seen versions of it, and we saw in their, I think their round 1 game, because our game ended pretty early. We only got through, I think, just the beginning of round 3, so we had a couple of hours of extra time when round 1 was over. So when we started walking around, we saw Donnie and Ian playing their game in round 1, and they were doing something very similar to the Thorpe Thump. It was certainly a kill Japan first strategy. I of course wasn't there for their purchases or combat moves or anything like that. I didn't stay there, but I could see
Yeah.
from looking at the map. So I think that we didn't want to run against this strategy at this, so like we were willing to pay a little bit to not have to play against it. So
Yeah.
But yeah, it was weird.
It was. Yeah, and they did something interesting to it. I probably would have done something different with that unit placement. I would have gone a couple of different places. That's not necessarily a criticism. It's just not what I would have done. I would have probably gone West Russia, Ukraine with it. I think we talked about this. I mean, heck, even Libya to hit Egypt. I think there was a couple of other places that you could have gone. Maybe one of the Japanese islands, in the Philippines or something, and a number of other places.
Well, to me, the natural place for it, they've given us the Allies. They're fairly confident that we're going to do a kill Japan first. To me, the obvious move is to drop it in Manila, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the hardest
Yeah.
place to get additional Japanese units, right? Like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because you've got to be able to secure transports there and back and there and back, which
Yeah.
when the Allies are flooding the zone with bombers and aircraft carriers and 17 fighters and whatever else they can spend money on, that's not an easy thing to do. So to me, that would have been where I would have put anticipating our strategy. That's where I would have put the extra IPCs of whatever value. Like if it had been 5 or 10 or 6 or whatever, like all of my units would have been in Manila.
Yeah. I mean, it worked out in a sense though, because if I recall, they used that stack of men to go into the Ukraine, and that's where you attacked and whiffed on the following round. And they had this big stack of guys in the Ukraine. So I mean, it was they put it to use.
Yeah. So in the first round, the Russians had the roll of their lives.
Yeah.
Like we lost. I think we lost nobody in West Russia, and we lost 2 guys in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is brutal. Like I was still stung from how badly that battle had gone for me as the German player in round 2. Like it was almost the exact reverse, except it was worse for the Germans in this round than I had to deal with in round 2. Like I don't know that I have ever seen that outcome go so badly for the Germans. But then we had a couple of really bad rolls, subsequent in that same arena. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right though.
Yeah.
It's not to say that the guy in Belarusia didn't have a good use. He certainly did, but it was
Mhm.
it was a tricky thing. Um, got here late. Has the access bid already been discussed? Yes. Yes, it has. Watch the replay. It was weird. That is really but I don't know that it's a reflection on the current state of the game. I think that it's a reflection on the strategies that were in play. Like, we felt pretty confident that they were going to do a kill Japan first strategy, which we didn't want to mess with. They thought we were going to do a kill Japan first strategy, which they didn't want to mess with. So that's what pushed the balance towards the axis. I don't I don't think that the game is is somehow then slanted towards the allies. Like that hasn't changed. The setup that we've been using the same 3.0 setup now for years, and
Mhm.
this is the first time that we've seen that happen. So I think that was more situational than should be read into a larger plot for the game, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Here's an interesting question. What are your opinions on on a low luck dice tournament? And do you think such a tournament would be better with a high luck version of the game, such as 1941, given the low number of dice rolls? Um, no, no, I don't. I Because I think that part of the heart of this game is an element of luck, right? And it's what causes replayability, right? Like, if we knew how the battle in Ukraine was going to go every time, or the battle in West Russia was going to go every time, or the battle in Shanghai was going to go every time, within some very narrow margin of error, well, now we're just playing chess, right? And if I want to do that, I'll go play chess. And I think that would hurt the replayability of the game, right? Like, the Thorpe thump is a really great strategy, but I've never seen it play out the same way twice, right?
Yeah,
Because it's always different, and that's what makes it fun.
yeah, I agree. To me, it just becomes a math calculation then, and I don't know what low luck would have done to the round three when the American Navy hit the Japanese Navy. And if I remember correctly, we had exactly a 38% chance of winning. We actually didn't win the battle outright. So, whatever the math came out on what was left over there. But on low luck, it would have been calculated down to an exact science. And I think there's times in the game when you make a risk like that. Like, to us, it was worth making that move. And we didn't know how it was going to play out. It could have been a complete disaster for us. So I think that's one thing. And I think anytime, like, name a game that doesn't have some element of luck. There's very, very few of them, right? Cards, you get dealt a good hand or a bad hand. You know, Risk, you're rolling dice. You know, Wingspan, the birds you choose, or
Mm-hmm.
get dealt to or come up on your turn. The way the food goes into the bird feeder, right? Diplomacy, technically there's not luck there, but what country you start out with, there is an element, right? And so you're entering a game knowing that there's luck involved. It's a part of the game. And so I don't know that I think trying to wash that out completely is like the way to go. And I've said it, I think, in both of our videos so far, almost every single time I think solid strategy beats dice rolls. I've had some games where I've played, um, I think, really poorly and had great dice rolls and gotten beaten.
Oh yeah.
And I've played where I've had horrible dice rolls and I think my strategy won out. So you put yourself in the position to win. So again, I know everyone's going to have an exception. you know, I, I have an exception to there's maybe one game I can think of where I went on a 60% chance attack at London and failed and lost the game because of it because I put all my eggs in that basket. But you could argue that that was a poor choice to put all my eggs in that basket. Therefore, it was even though the dice didn't go my way, it was a strategic error. So anyway, those are kind of some of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that there's just, I think so. one of the things that I think is important is like access knowledge is very separate from the politics of the countries at the time, right? Like I don't feel bad playing the Germans and winning as the Germans, like because it's separate, right? It's not the same thing. But it's easy to say like luck is part of war, and this is a war simulation game, right? Like D-Day was, if I'm reading my history right, was delayed for weather, right? Like one of the biggest land invasions in the history of the world was delayed because of rain, right? And a storm in the channel, right? Like that happens, right? And battle groups get caught in storms and pieces of information, or the luck is also part of like espionage, right? Like we don't have espionage in any of these games, but that's certainly a factor, right? That may not be accounted for in the dice, right? But it's expressed in that way, right? So it's to me, luck is an integral part of the game.
Yeah.
All right. Whoa, what have we got going on here? This is a good question.
I like the comment. Go ahead. Go ahead.
What was it?
I just like the comment that someone made that they said, when you win at strategy, when I lose it's luck. That's pretty, yeah. I feel like that's a common theme when you talk to people after a game.
Yeah, that's true.
Well said.
That's true. It is a salve for the ego, right? Did you see the dice I had in that game? How did I, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
sometimes.
Yeah, sure. The AA map has markedly changed over the years. Do you think the Thorpe lamp would work on, say, the 2004 version? I don't know. It's a good question. What do you think? I guess the better question is, have you used this strategy in other versions of the game?
I have. You can use some variations of this strategy in Anniversary Edition. It is different. There's a lot of differences. We won't have time to go into all of that, but whether Britain can get a factory in India, just a lot of other things. So I think you can use a variation of a strategy similar to this in Anniversary. I'm actually not sure if I've ever played the 2004. That's the revised. Is that the revised version? Which is the 2004?
Yeah, that's the blue
version?
box.
Yeah,
I believe that's this guy.
Yeah, I actually don't know that I've ever played that version.
Can you tell that the guts aren't in here?
Yeah.
Little secret here for those of you turning into the live stream: half the boxes behind me are empty. This is not, though. My Access now, my classic Access Knowledge, that actually has 2 copies in it. Yeah, I think this is 2004. But yeah, and I really like this map, by the way. I really like this map and this game. So I think that's
it's like the black. Is that blackboard? It's like black, right?
It's like a dark blue. Yeah. It's real dark, and it's got some pretty cool graphics on it. So, All right. Hey, I love your videos. Thank you very much. I haven't played for probably 15 years and bought the Steam version recently. Thank you so much for your quality content. I am hooked again. Roy, welcome back. It's Rory. It's good to see you back. And thanks for being here. Tell Beamdog where you heard about us. They we're trying to get in touch with them. All right. Empty like my heart, aardvark. What are you doing to me, brother? All right. Oh, here we go. Let's see. Ellis, you talked about in round 2 about how Russia was too spread out and out of position to make an impact on the ending. What's the difference between for Russia in round 3 that kept them still relevant? This is a really good question, and it's funny actually, because when I was editing round 3 together, I thought, I said the opposite thing in round 2. But here's why it's different. Our Russian units were active in other places. And in round 2, the Russian units, they were just kind of out there. They weren't a threat to anything. The Russian units were actually doing things. They were either actively threatening Japanese units, or being traded off for Japanese units in some cases, and they were threatening Shanghai, or protecting units that were threatening Shanghai. So they were active pieces on the board versus just a guy standing out in the field, right? So that to me is the biggest difference. Doug, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, except the tank that made it around at Manchuria. That poor guy. That was so annoying.
I don't know. Maybe that guy should have made it, because he could have gone back to Moscow too. But to me, like,
Fine.
creating the possibility of the third fork was valuable. But it was really anticlimactic when we rolled it out. Like, I was really psyched about it, right? This is going to be like, I built it up in my head like it was this like master scheme. And then it was like, I rolled and missed, he rolled and hit, and then we were done. I was like, well, okay, well, I guess we're done with that. Let me go land my fighters back in Moscow and shut up. So it worked out, but it's fine. I hope that answers your question, Ellis. Oh, okay. I think I know what you're talking about here, Carl. Surprised Japan didn't attack the U.S. fleet off of San Francisco. Let me see if I can find the spot that you're talking about. I think it would have been Japan 3, because the Americans dropped that carrier, and it wasn't particularly strong.
2 transports, the carrier, can't remember exactly what all, and a fighter or something like that was the build. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, it was a... Yeah, here it is. Let me see if I can bring it up on the screen. Yeah, let me move you out of the way here, Doug. Get out of the way.
Yep.
Okay, so I think, is this what you're talking about, Carl? I think it is. And I think you're right. I remember thinking the same thing. Like, this was a dangerous spot here, because we made this purchase, and these 6 fighters could have gone out here and gotten, taken a pretty good swipe at these guys. Let me see if I can, hey, we're getting fancy now. We're breaking out the arrows. But I can make it bigger, but I don't think I can rotate it. Anyway, these guys right here. Angle. No, I can't do it. So yeah, so the Japanese guys here could have swung out here with 6 fighters and really done something that would have been a problem, because they would have also gotten these transports, which would have been a mess. So yeah, that you're right, Carl. That was an opportunity that they could have tried to take advantage of. So yeah, that's a good call. So this is not, and people, like, we talk about this being a really good strategy. It is not unbeatable. There are ways to beat this strategy, and it's by seeing moves like that. And I'm not surprised that Carl, who has a garage full of hardware from all the tournaments he's won, I'm not surprised that Carl is the one to point that out. And I am certain that it is not the last one he's going to find in this video and in others. So yes, so that's a really good call, Carl. Thank you for pointing that out.
Hey, a little shadowing. Wait for the next game, Carl.
Yeah. Watch this space. Yeah, watch this space in the final match. It's going to be so yeah, it's a good thing. But so there we go. Yeah, that's a good call, Carl. Thank you. So one of the things that I wanted to try to talk about in this live stream was, and we're going to come back to the questions in a second, but some of the comments that we've been getting are, first, let me say, 98% of the comments that we're getting are just fantastic. And thank you all so very much for the compliments and for subscribing. We made 10,000 subscribers this week, and that's a huge threshold for a YouTube channel, and we are so grateful. Thank you so much for subscribing and being part of this kind of mayhem with us. But I should say that like 4,000 of those subscribers have come in the last 2 weeks. On January 1st, we just cleared 6,000 subscribers. We've now gotten well over 10,000, and I think this is really, really amazing. So thank you all very, very much. But some of the comments that we've been getting are a little overly critical of our opponents, and I think that people underestimate how difficult it is to play in this environment. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to put anybody off of it, but it is a challenging environment because you're in a giant convention space, right? You're playing 3-4 games over the course of just a couple of days, which is intense. And you're running to get food, and there's people walking by talking about Magic and Pokemon, and you're playing against people you've never played before, and you're trying to figure out the bids and the rules and the timing. And oh, by the way, now there's a clock that like no one has, like, people don't play with clocks in casual play. Like, they're used to being able to take as much time as they want to make their choices and all that stuff. So be kind, man. This is not an easy environment to play in, and it makes even the most experienced players make some silly mistakes. See game 4. We made some doozies. There's no doubt about that. So be nice to some folks, but yeah. So yeah, that's all I had to say about that. So Doug, I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, we made. I mean, Carl already pointed out potential critical error in this game. Definitely made some in game 4. So yeah, our intent here is not to pick people apart or criticize them. We're trying to objectively point out their mistakes and our mistakes, and just talk about how different things that we both could have done differently. So hopefully it's a learning experience. It's not meant to put a limelight on anybody's failures or shortcomings in a particular move or point at the game.
No, absolutely not. I think all of the games were good. And I think our first round I think we had some really great dice, and I think maybe they'd made some mistakes, but still, it was, it was fun to play, and we had a good time. So it's a little tricky, but thank you all for the support and all the feedback. Yes, these videos are a lot of work. I will not bore you with the number of hours that it takes to do this thing or that thing, but it is it's a lot. It's been my full-time job now for quite some time, just working on this video series. So I appreciate that work is, is being recognized. That's great. If you knew how long it took me to get the first 1,000 subscribers, the fact that we got 4,000 in 2 weeks is great. So we're really grateful for that.
Yeah, I just want to give kudos for that. As far as these videos are concerned, I'm basically able to show up and participate. He's doing all the real hard work behind the scenes on that. So appreciate that, Gary. Shout out to you, buddy.
Thank you, brother. And thank you, Doug, for being here. He was actually scheduled out of town on a business trip and was able to rearrange some flights so that he could be with us this evening. Thank you very much. So he's been on a plane coming in from California all day. So we appreciate him being here for sure. All right. So let's get back to the questions here. Here's a good question. Yes, the answer is yes. Are you able to observe, watch the tournament as a spectator or fan? The answer is yes, so long as you don't interfere. So, like, no comments from the peanut gallery, please, because that is a problem. And I have seen that before, where there's been a game going on and somebody walks up and says, "Oh, you should do this, 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 and this." Like, bro, don't do that. Don't be that guy, right? But if you just want to watch, that's totally fine. And you'd be more than welcome, but you'd be encouraged to play, really, is what would happen. Right? We'd find you an event to play in, and you'd come and play, because they do have Greg Smorey puts on the tournament at Gen Con, and he has lots of different events. They do, not that Dan, I don't think you'd probably need this, but they do demos of 1941 to get people introduced to the game. I've actually run a couple of those at Gen Con just this last year for Doug, or for Greg rather, and they're a lot of fun, and people are there and having a good time. And so, yeah, it's a competitive event, and people are serious when they're playing, for sure. But it's also people having a good time, So
yeah, there's a lot of lightheartedness and ability to just have fun during the game, which is cool because it's competitive and serious, but it's not too serious sometimes.
Yeah, Yeah, it's not like this. I know what you're talking about, Bill. In Vegas, you get kicked out for table talk, which would be being a kibitzer and then like talking about another game. This is particularly important in poker, right? Like I folded, a jack 4 and there's 2 jacks on the board. Like that's a problem, right? Don't be that guy, right? So yeah, but I've seen people get like, hey man, knock it off, but never like, no one ever kicked out. So this is I like this question, Jeff. How big is the competitive A&A scene? I've only done casual with friends. So you're looking at it. I think most of the community has been in the live chats here, and we're grateful that they've been here. Greg's events usually bring in, how many people do you think, Doug?
Oh, I don't know. I
You've been
mean,
to
he
more than
has,
I have.
yeah, he always has a global tournament, an anniversary tournament, a 1942 tournament,
Mhm.
and those. I mean, I think now global, because there's a lot longer of a game there. Those
10
are
hours.
3 round. Yeah, I've been in shorter, like 3 round tournaments, but I mean, I think, and someone in the chat can probably correct me on this, like the Masters tournament used to run, it was like pool play where you play a couple of games and then your points take you into the semifinals and then finals. Those could be five rounds, 42, sometimes it's three to 4 rounds. I think maybe even 5 rounds once. So whatever the math is on that. But I know that there are other forms of Axis and Allies. There's other events like Greg does Gen Con and an event usually in late June called the Spring Gathering, mid June, right before summer. And I know there's more. Spring Gathering's smaller than Gen Con, but still a good little tournament, good group of people.
Yeah, the spring gathering is usually in Wilder, Kentucky, which is just south of Cincinnati. And like you said, Greg runs that event. Usually gets, I don't know, 45, 50 people. It's a nice event. They play Friday, Saturday. It's at a hotel, so you can come in and stay at the hotel. I think it's a Holiday Inn.
Yeah,
Yeah, Holiday Inn. I think it is.
and Wilder can.
Yeah. It's a nice enough spot. Good question. Ben Foreman, what is your question? As a beginner who is due to play my first ever game, welcome, my friend. Welcome.
Nice.
You know what? You get the applause for that one. There you go. Thanks for being here, Benjamin. Let's see if we can answer your question here and set you off right. In the next month or two, do you have a recommendation for side or strategy to play my first game against more experienced players? Whew, so
What version is my first question?
right. So we're going to come back to you, Ben. We need answers to these questions. What version are you playing? Are you playing with anyone else on your side? Or are you playing alone against somebody else who's a more experienced player? So answer those questions for us if you can in a single comment, and we'll do our best to come back and give you as much as quality of coaching as we possibly can. All right. So we're going to come back to Ben in a second. All right.
Shane has an interesting question in there. Do you think that Moscow would have fallen without the great round one outlier?
I don't know. What do you think?
That's hard to answer because there was plenty of time to respond. If more guys would have gotten lost, we could have potentially put more British air up there to defend it. Um, the builds could have been a little bit different. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard to know. I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't. If I remember
Well,
correctly, that
yeah, there was some
it wasn't.
balance too,
I'm
right?
sorry.
There was some balance to that luck as well because the Russians went out and swiped at Ukraine and got punched in the mouth, didn't hit anybody, lost 4 or 5 units, and then moved back. So
Yeah.
so there was a little bit of balance in that. But to your point, Doug, like if we'd have seen that the threat was greater, we would have responded with more gusto. But yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think the battle ended up not being all that close, right? Like Russia had plenty of stuff left over there after that fight.
Yeah, we had 4 land units and 6 fighters when it was over.
Yeah. So
And when we went in, they had a 30% chance of winning the battle outright, which I was not crazy about. Like a 30% odds to lose your capital is probably not a place you want to be living a whole lot of the time.
Yeah.
But I wanted to send the AA gun out to Kwangtung for reasons passing understanding. I don't know why we did that. Or the guys that
It's
walked.
just
I don't know. It seemed like a good idea at the time. I don't know what to tell you.
like that tank we left in Canada. It's like what? Like that just
Exactly. Yeah. Not
literally
that
what
not that it made
happened?
it.
We just
Yeah.
had to
Yeah.
transport
Not
and
that tank made a
you know,
huge difference to the game, but it certainly was.
it,
You know.
just dumb stuff like that.
Yes, and this is what you get for like when you play live. Like crazy things happen. All right. That's a good question, though, Shane. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Would you say that investing in some transports would be worth it for Great Britain to threaten Paris or to tie up some German units? We did have this discussion at the table, and because like they were all in for Russia, there's no doubt about that. And the trouble is that any diversion from the Thorpe Thump can very quickly spell disaster. Because if you all of a sudden start splitting your money from London and Calcutta, now like you need every one of those fighters, you need every one of those bombers down there, or that sub, or that transport that you need at the last. So if you if you happen to keep a transport from early in the game, then cool, do your best to protect it. But I don't know that I would I would encourage the distraction. Staying laser focused on a particular target is the goal. But if an opportunity presents itself where the Germans are like too far away and you can scoop up Paris in the last, then cool. Then yeah, absolutely go do that. But it's situationally, yeah, do what you need to do in the situation. But as a general principle, as a general strategic plan, I would say no. If you're dedicated to a Kill Japan first, then be dedicated to a Kill Japan first, is my thought.
Not a lot to add there. I agree. If you have money and don't know what to do with it, and there's an open door, maybe. But if you're still needing to crank things out in order to get Shanghai or something, then it's better just to put the pressure there. I think Benjamin came back to us with his answer here.
Oh, beautiful. I love it. Okay, cool. All right, man. What do we got? I believe it's 1942. I know he has 41 and 42, but I believe we discussed playing 42, and it's me by myself versus one other player, as we're just trying to squeeze the game in over the weekend as we're in university. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you're playing 42 second edition. And if you're playing by yourself against somebody who's more experienced, I would then say that you probably want to play the Axis, because it's a little bit more straightforward. The Allies require a bit more logistical planning. Like you got to know when you buy transports in DC on turn 1 or turn 3 or whenever it is that you buy them, you have to know that they have enough units to maximize their efficiency, right? Don't buy a transport if you don't have guys to move them. Don't buy guys if you don't have a transport to move them, right? That makes me so crazy when I watch like playthroughs of guys like online, or like, why did you buy a transport? There's no one for it to move, right? Or why did you buy that guy who's just going to stand in San Francisco and doesn't have a ride? That's just a
I think
waste
we
of
saw
money.
that do a little bit. I think they did that a couple times as the Allies.
Right. Like you got to maximize the efficiency of transports, and that's not really as much of an issue, right? When you got to think about that for the Axis, right? That's not nearly as much of an issue. But so I think the Allies require a bit more logistics and planning, which usually takes a little bit more experience, because you got to know kind of how the map lays out and how many moves it is to get from this place to this place and that kind of stuff. So I think the Axis would probably be where I would start. Doug, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think they are more straightforward, less direct coordination between the two of them. And I think Yeah, you again, like we've been talking, you pick a target. If you want to put the pressure on Russia, go for that. I've seen Japan be effective at driving through China and pressuring Russia from the back. Also, they don't have to go for India.
No.
I think you still have to keep an eye on India. You have to not let India come out and swallow you up from the south. But there are things that you can do to coordinate for sure. But yeah, I think the Axis is probably the best option.
Yeah, and from a strategic point of view, what I would recommend is kind of what Doug just referred to there, which is a kill Russia first. So, and my preferred strategy for a kill Russia first strategy is the first 2 rounds of purchases for the Germans are all infantry and artillery, and then the next round is tanks, and then depending on where you are, maybe it's another round of tanks, and then it's all air units after that, and everything is just constantly marching at Moscow. It's a fairly straightforward and fairly easy strategy to execute. We saw a little bit of that in round 3, where they made infantry purchase, and then they started to build tanks. I think that works well in a game that can last 10, 12, 15 rounds. I don't think it works particularly well in tournament play. Which is why I liked the gray skies that you saw in round 2 with the guys in the infantry and the fighters, because they can get to victory cities much quicker. So yeah, and then Japan keeps landing in Yunnan, right? You get yourself up to 4 transports, and then you start landing in Yunnan, and you keep enough threat on India that they can't break out, but you're actually marching towards Moscow. So that to me is the simplest and fairly successful strategy for Axis for a new player. And I'm sure there's going to be 17 people in the chat who disagree with that, but you're asking my opinion. You asked me, Ben, so I'm telling you what I think. So thanks. Good luck, man. Good hunting. Come back next week and let us know how it went.
Yeah, let's know how it went. And yeah, I agree. I think what you laid out there is very simple, straightforward. I won't complicate it any. Sounds great.
There's certainly a lot of exotic Axis strategies too. Like in theory, the Thorpe Thump could be considered an exotic allied strategy, only because it's not been seen very frequently, certainly pretty rarely online. So I think that, and there are strategies like this for the Axis as well. There's a kill US first strategy that's a lot of fun. There's a strategy that I've been trying to put together for a long time that forks London and Leningrad and Eastern Canada in one move. It's a lot of fun. We'll see if we can get that on the channel one day. But awesome. Well, good luck, Ben. You know what? To get That's officially the good luck sound from now on. The glockenspiel is the good luck sound. All right. That's a good question. Is saving for a larger buy in a future round of a strategy at more competitive levels? UK or US saves for a big Atlantic Navy buy in round 2 or 3?
Yes. So these games were actually a little unique in that I think we did every time we were the Allies, we did the same UK round 1 buy. And I actually don't do the 2 bomb run sub buy very often. I've done it maybe 2 other times in tournament play. Um, and I have done that. Depending on, again, what your objectives are, but maybe you're just trying to hold on to India, so you put 3 infantry in India on round 1, save the rest of the UK's money, and then do a big fleet drop in the Atlantic on round 2. So obviously it depends on what fleets you have left over, but yeah, that's a very legitimate option for the Allies.
Yeah, to me, so if you get in 42nd edition, if you get blown away in Sea Zone 7, right, and there's still a cruiser and a sub there, and both fighters flew away, and all your naval units got destroyed, right? Like, then yeah, you're probably, but you still want to make some kind of kill Germany first play. Then yeah, you're probably not going to want to spend build that one carrier and a destroyer right? Those are probably almost certainly going to get destroyed, and without getting a reasonable return. So in those situations, that's when I think that it's easier, or smarter anyway, to wait until you can buy, a carrier and 3 destroyers, or 2 carriers, or whatever it is, that whatever the combination is that's right for that particular situation. But yeah, that's absolutely a reasonable strategic choice at any level.
Yeah, yeah, particularly if you have the destroyer off of Canada and the cruiser off of Gibraltar, you can kind of pull those back, maybe move the cruiser up to link up with that destroyer, and then on round 2 you're building a bigger fleet and you're adding that cruiser and destroyer to the fleet to just make it that much more powerful.
Yeah, I I actually have a little bit of a different take on UK naval purchases. Um, a lot of people will say, and I've heard this online a couple of times, that the the game, particularly online, comes down to who can get the most fighters to Moscow the fastest, right? So can all the Axis fighters get there? Can the Allied fighters be there in defense? So a lot of times, and sometimes that turns out to be true, right? But but in that vein, every time you purchase a UK carrier with fighters, or destroyer, or cruiser, or whatever it is that you can put out there, they're almost certainly sending German air units out there to take them out. So it continues to thin down the German air units, making it harder to get them to Moscow. Plus, it pulls them back to the west. So there's a strategy there that well, maybe this is a better way to say it. There's a concept in chess where you control a piece by threat, or rather you control a square by threat, right? So I can threaten it with my knight and my bishop, right? I don't actually have to move into that square, right? But I can control it through threat, and that is sort of what you're doing here by putting the UK in a position where they can threaten Paris, so they can threaten Leningrad. You're forcing the defense of it, and that is a form of control. If that makes any sense at all for all my chess players out there. All right, so Cannon plays. I'm a young member of the community, started in 2018. How can I get involved in more competitive play? I play Global, Revised, and Europe 1999 a lot. I'm also educated in other versions through YouTube. Well, great, Cannon. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in and for this question. This is a question that many, many people have, and I would like to have a better answer for you. I'm hoping that with all of the new interest in these videos and of this particular content, that we see greater organization form. I've been getting the question a lot, like, where are tournaments in my area? And if you are not in the Indianapolis, Cincinnati area, it'll be very difficult to plan an Axis and Allies tournament. There are other gaming events, BBR. They host events in several different cities around the country. It's not technically Axis and Allies, but it is a variant, I guess is the easier way to say it. But so the answer to this question, unfortunately, at this point, is to come to the Spring Gathering or come to Gen Con. There have been people asking me to host an event in Memphis. I have event production experience and have run many, many tournaments in other industries. I worked in casinos for 20 years and ran tournaments of all kinds there. So it is something that I'm certainly qualified to do. If anybody's interested in that, I guess please let me know. So it's something that I think would be fun. But Cannon, at this point, tell me where you're from, and we'll see if we can put you together with some other folks that are in that space. Do you have any other suggestions for how to do that, Doug?
No, I mean, I started out by just going to Gen Con and playing in the tournaments. That's really how I got there. Now I'm, close to Indy, but, people come to Gen Con from literally all over the world. So that'd be a great place to start.
Yep. Bradley, this is a really, really good question. Will the 2024 World Championships be played over 1942.2? The answer to that question is I don't know. And I don't know what is going to happen. I'm super excited by all the news this week out of Renegade. For anybody who hasn't heard, they are taking pre-orders now for North Africa. They're taking pre-orders for the G.I. Joe game, which I'm really excited about. I think it's going to be a lot of fun and really good tool for bringing more people into the game. But the headline here, and they kind of buried it. I'm not going to lie. I feel like they kind of buried the headline a little bit here. They're reprinting Anniversary Edition. And it'll be the 50th anniversary of the classic from when the classic came out in 1984. So that was how they're keeping the anniversary term, which works out actually pretty nicely because it lands on AA50. Perfect. So that's great. So they're reprinting that, but not only that, they're reprinting it with an available, not together. There's two separate products here. There's the game, and then there's a separate product that's the deluxe board. Like a play mat, like they did for the giant global. Like they made a yoga mat. To me, it looks like a yoga mat. That's the global board, and they're making a big anniversary neoprene mat as well for that game, which I think is very, very cool. So super excited about that. I don't know. I would be interested to see the World Championship for 2024 settled on the anniversary board. I think that would be cool. I think it'd be a really great way to promote the sale of that game and the play of that game, because I think it's a great game. Don't get me wrong, love 42 second edition, but I think anniversary is a lot of fun. It's just got a little bit more complexity, but not so much that you're going to be at it for the next 3 days. You know what I mean? So I think that we'll have to see. I'm sure Renegade and Greg Smorey will get their collective, very big brains together and see what they want to do. But I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. That'd be great. There are two questions I noticed about the Allies pressuring Germany, then Germany doing a turn one build to pre-position to force the UK not to do the Thorpe thump round one. Basically forcing the UK to spend in England. I think those would be interesting questions.
Is this Dan?
I saw one from a Paul, maybe further up in the chat, and I didn't see Dan's yet.
Dan, we'll come back to this in a minute.
It's like a Marcus, but instead of the A, there's a 4, and then right below it, there's Dan Fournier.
Dan, put your question in again. I think I kind of lost it in the chat here. Do you know what it was?
Dan or Paul? The one I'm talking about?
Paul.
Okay, so Paul said, can Germany do a turn one build in pre-position to force UK not to do a Thorpe thump round one build? That is, force UK to spend in England versus India. The answer, the short answer to this is yes. I think it's a legitimate Axis strategy.
So what would that buy be?
I've seen a couple of things. I've seen maybe 2 or 3 different routes. You buy a carrier and a destroyer is normally what you do. Yeah, there you go. And I've seen people execute a couple of different ways. When you go to Sea Zone 7 with Germany, you go in heavy and you don't take the cruiser. So you hit the British Navy, then you have a cruiser, destroyer, and carrier left over in Sea Zone 5. I've seen people go in with everything and not build. As a matter of fact, the very first time I saw it, the guy took everything into Sea Zone 7, built the carrier, and I'm sitting there like, that looks scary, and I just went after it with all the British Air, which is a 10v10, 10 attack, 10 defense, and we got a wash. And the guy built another carrier, which I think was a mistake, because I just blew up one of his carriers and 2 of his airplanes. But I've had that be very successful against me. Maybe not very, but I've had it be successful against me. I actually had a game where I lost London due to that. But here's what I like about the Thorpe thump. I actually still won that game. The Axis player had Karelia and had London, but I was still able to get Manila and Shanghai with America with a little bit of help from Britain. So now I think that's an anomaly. I don't think that's normally going to happen when you lose London. Um, but it is a legitimate way to take a lot of money away from India. And in that game in particular, I was not building as much. I wasn't putting as much money in India. I was building infantry, artillery, and tanks primarily in India, and was able to get enough pressure on Japan to. That game also went 6 or 7 rounds, and America was able to bring a lot to bear on Japan.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we haven't seen so far out of the Thorpe Thump is like what happens in round 6, 7, or 8, right? If they're continuing to buy 3, 4 bombers a turn, like by the time you get to round 8, like here comes 12 bombers. Like stand up to that.
I think I've
Before
mentioned this.
let me double back on this UK thing real quick. So
Yeah.
I'm going to put a link to a video in the chat here, and I did a video that was the name of it is how I beat the oh no, I'm sorry, I put in the wrong link. This is the 5 Russian openings. Yeah, how I got a standard victory in 2 rounds of play. And yeah, this video was halfway about how bad the Beamdog AI is. I wasn't intentionally trying to trash their AI, but I do show a German strategy in that particular video that I think would be really interesting to run against if you knew you were going to run against the here it is. If you knew you were going to run against the Thorpe Thump or somebody that was a big fan of it or of a kill Japan first strategy, this would be interesting to see how they responded to it. So here's that video, and it kind of halfway sets up a sea lion attack, which is a German amphibious assault on London, but it also has several other kind of hidden features inside of it. But anyway, so this is one way that Germany can make it harder to do the Thorpe Thump, but I don't think this would stop it. But we'll see.
Yeah, this
Sorry,
is
I didn't
the
interrupt you.
only.
Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. This is the only tournament where I never had a game go past round 5. I usually go round. I'd say 6 is by far the average. I've gotten to 7 a couple times in tournament play.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because I actually felt really pressured in these games. Like if I were to say what's the ideal number of rounds for the Allies using the strategy, it's 6 rounds. Like I felt a little pressured every game to move forward a little bit more quickly. Just because I don't know what it was. We were playing slow. They were playing slow. World Championship. Like whatever it was. It wasn't by no means was it the opponents were like slow playing these games. I'm just saying we were all moving a little bit slower than I'm used to in these games.
Yeah. So here's why, right? Like there's been a lot of comments like, how did you only get 5 rounds in 5 hours? Well, when you're playing like so 2 things here. First, when you're playing at a really high level and you're playing in a world championship, like you're playing against good players, and so you're spending a lot more time kind of thinking and planning, conferring with your teammate, trying to come to like a consensus about how we're all going to move forward here. But also like there's no chess clock, right? So like if I knew that I had like if I was playing the Allies and I had say 3 hours on my clock and the Axis had 2 hours on their clock, like we would probably play a little bit differently, right? Because it's a shared time pool. And this is another one of those rules that I'd love to see tightened up. But I think that's part of why is that it's tricky because it's a lot of variables in there, but I think that's for sure. So, all right. Oh, here's a multi-million-dollar question. is it possible to build a fully functional AI for Axis and allies, just like chess is stockfish? It might be possible from more recent developments of more advanced AI. I would suggest that you forward this question to Beamdog, because I did an interview with Trent Oster, the CEO of Beamdog, and that's also on the channel if you want to go back. And we talked about the AI, and his general position on the AI is that the AI is not supposed to be good, right? It's supposed to be there as a training tool to help people like figure out how to move all the pieces around, which is basically why it's there. It's not designed to be a particularly challenging opponent. It does okay. Like it'll make basic level moves, but if you hit it with something that looks like the Thorpe Thump or anything that is out of its predicted, strategies, it flounders. And that's, kind of how it goes. But for them to like go out and build or pay somebody to build a giant AI that could, he makes a joke like that the AI would probably come up with some like brilliant Brazilian strategy and blow us all away, right? Like, wait, what? why are there 3 battleships off the coast of Brazil? What? I don't understand. Axis wins. Like, well, great. Okay, great. What? But anyway, so yeah, I would love to see this develop, but I'm happy still playing with humans at the moment. All right. Okay, so we've got a couple other questions in here. I think the bald guy was a dealer at the Venetian. It's coming back to me, dude. 10 years ago, deep stack extravaganza. No, I did deal poker. And fun fact about Gary Blevins, I actually have dealt more than 1 million hands of poker. I was a poker dealer for many, many years, but I also dealt craps. I was a floor supervisor, table games manager, but I never did work at the Venetian. So you've got me mistaken for some other random bald dude, but thank you. And I have dealt deep stack tournaments before. What is the Japanese defense to the Thorpe Thump? So we get this question a lot. How would you like to answer this, Doug?
It's a trade secret.
Trade secret, my friend. Trade secret.
Yeah, there are people out there who've beaten me when I've used this strategy. It's not flawless by any means. You know, after John Bosch and I used it on Gary a couple years ago, Gary and I warming up for the World Championship just did some practice games on Beaten Dog, and he knew what I was doing coming into it, but he beat me a couple of times there. So yeah, it's beatable. I mean, I don't know. What do you want to say about it, Gary?
No. I mean, it is beatable. It's got some vulnerabilities. There's no doubt about it. Part of it is letting Germany run wild, right? Like to me, that's the biggest vulnerability. Like the most powerful military force on the board, and with a pretty strong economy to go with it, right? You're letting them go do whatever it is that they want to do, and leaving Russia pretty much alone to deal with them, right? Russia, who has a fraction of what of the starting military forces on the board, and has like 24 IPCs to start versus 41. Like, yeah, and it's not real easy for the Russians to go out and pick up new territories, right? I mean, they can do a couple land grabs here and a couple land grabs there, but like to their east, like it's very difficult for them to go get Manchuria. That's not an easy get for the Russians, right? And they can step into West Russia, maybe Ukraine, but they're probably, it's pretty rare that they're going to also then take Poland or Romania, Romania, Bulgaria. There's just not a lot of easy money for them to get, right? So versus say the UK in the South Pacific, they can go after the East Indies, they can go after Borneo, they can pick up some pretty healthy IPCs pretty quickly. In theory, the Germans can go down and take Africa away from them. So there's a lot. All right.
think we were going to try to get to Dan's question. You brought it up, and then
Yes, we talked a little bit about it. He he restated Paul's question. Thank you for your help, Dan. We'll sign you up as a moderator. Dan, is there a plan to cover strats such as a UK kill strat, Japan first kill strats, America kill first strats, or videos to show these are early signs that tip an opponent's hand for new players to learn? Well, that's a really good suggestion. So I guess the video would be how to beat common strategies, how to recognize and defeat common Axis and Ally strategies. Yeah, it's kind of an advanced concept, right? Because I'd have to explain what the kill UK first strategy was and then how you'd beat it, right? What the strategy is, how to recognize it, and then how to beat it. So yeah, that could be, well, that could be a whole series of videos if it came really down to it. But that is an interesting idea. So I'll give that some thought. Let me let that ruminate a little bit, percolate in the bald head, and see what shakes out. Yes, Renegade Studios has an official Discord, and this might be a good place to do some organization. There are a couple of really good Axis and Allies Discord channels that people are using primarily to organize online play, where they can set up the voice chat and all that kind of stuff, which is pretty cool. I haven't really used it very much. There is a Board Game Nation Discord channel. I think there are 3 members, and one of them is my wife, so as a test account. So I don't go there if you want to, but I'm rarely there. So, but yeah, Discord might be a good tool for organizing this, for organizing tournament events. All right. What was the most surprising or different strategy you saw this year? I know.
what's that?
It was in round 3 when the German player picked up the tank and the tank and the infantry off of Libya and transported it to Ukraine. I thought that was a really interesting move. I would have brought the battleship with it. I don't know why they don't bring the battleship with it, because it just leaves the carrier alone and takes away a bunch of options in the med. But man, I that to me was really interesting. I think there's some cool variants there that could do some damage. I thought that was one.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. That's a good call out. You can bring a lot more into Ukraine and just put a lot more there against Russia, sacrificing Africa, but puts a lot of pressure on Russia.
Right, but if you're only playing to 5 or 6, right? Like it did in our game. It did make a difference how much money the UK was making, though. So that's a tough choice. But the thing is, like, if you send it up there with the battleship and the transport, right now you're in the Black Sea, and it's harder for the UK fighters to take it out, and the Russians don't want to risk their fighters to try to go after a battleship. So it's likely that it'll stay at least for another round. You build a guy in an artillery or a guy in a tank in Italy, and you can pop back and pick those up, or march the guys over from Algeria to Libya. If you're truly trying to abandon North Africa entirely, right? You pop back over, pick up the guys that march from Algeria into Libya, grab those guys, then bring them forward. Now that's 4 more units that you've got in the western or the eastern front of the German line that wouldn't have otherwise been there. Now you're going to lose the 3 IPCs worth of territory in North Africa, and you're never going to have a shot again at Africa in general. But if you're wanting to go all in, I mean, we talk all the time about focusing on a single target. This is certainly a way to do that. So I think that was one of the most surprising moves that I saw. other than that, I didn't see any like giant innovative strategies in this. The most innovative thing that I saw was the developments that we added to the Thorpe Thump in the practice and run up to the event. There's a couple of little nuances that have kind of been, and we talked, and one of them was in this game right here where the U.S. takes the Solomon Islands so that they don't have to worry about the fighters in Manila being able to reach, I think it's 44. Anyway, whatever the sea zone is off of the Solomon Islands, so they don't have to worry about that, because the carriers will be destroyed, but the fighters are still going to be on Manila. So taking away the landing zone of the Solomons, like that's a round 1, round 2 choice for the U.S. that doesn't bear fruit until round 4 or 5, right? So it's just those little subtle things that kind of finesse that strategy.
Here's a question for you. So looking back, I wish I remembered the exact like unit loss order, but when we hit season 47 in round 1, we ended up retaining the fighter and the carrier. And we retreated. Part of the reason is because we had our hits and they had their hits, and we were going to have 2 units left, and we had to make some decisions there. And I just kind of wonder, because those 2 fighters came back to cause us problems.
37.
They're the same. Yeah. Sorry, 37. I think I said 47. Yeah, they're the same. When America hit the Japanese fleet, the fighters survived. When Britain hit Shanghai, there was 1 fighter left. Like, those fighters came back and caused us problems. And I know hindsight is 2020, but it's like, would it have been worth sacrificing our carrier here and just doing another round of attack with our 2 fighters, or fighter and a cruiser or whatever? And again, hindsight's 2020. It's easy to say, oh yeah, well, if we could have gotten one of those fighters, it could have, I mean, we obviously won the game, but it could have changed the game even more, made it even a little bit easier. The U.S. could have had more left over. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting to bring that up and I'd be interested in your take on it, because sometimes those little decisions like have implications further down the line.
Yeah, I think I was the one who told you to retreat here. I think you probably wanted to keep going, and I pointed out, I don't remember exactly, but in my thinking here is that on the attack, the fighter and the carrier are only a 4. Right?
Yes.
Carrier attacks at a 1, fighter attacks at a 3, and we're going against 2 4s. So we're a 2-to-1 dog in this fight.
Yeah, but we would have lost the carrier, and I would have either had 2 fighters or probably a fighter and a cruiser left in the battle. So it would have been 2 3s against 2 4s.
Well, no, I'm saying at the end of this round of combat, where there was 2 fighters versus a fighter and a carrier. So if the choice here is to retreat, then I say here that retreating is the better option, because now if they come out to attack you, you're defending at a 6 and they're attacking at a 6. You've got a much better chance.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, before this round of combat, we took casualties. They did their defensive return fire, and we took pieces off the board, which is why we had a carrier and a fighter left.
Right.
We made those because we decided to retreat, and to your point, have the 6 defense basically. But it was just interesting to me to think about.
For sure.
We pressing our luck one more round and seeing if we could catch one of those fighters, or both of them even.
Maybe. I will say this was big. Like, taking Borneo this round, like we've gone back and forth, like, I don't know, for decades now, it seems like, over using these 2 transports up here. Do you use these 2 transports to go after Borneo and New Guinea, which is called the Double Dutch, or do you send both transports and 4 guys to take the East Indies, assuming that the battle in 37 goes well, right? Mind you, again, your 64% chance in the battle here, let me get us out of the way. Mind you that like when the battle's straight up, you're 64% chance, which means that there's a 36% chance that this battle goes completely sideways. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to get into that debate right now, but we've been going back and forth about whether it's better to go after the two islands, right? Worth a total of 5 IPCs, or is it better to put all your eggs in the basket and trying to go into East Indies? So this, to me, taking Borneo here made a big difference in this game because it created landing zones for the American bombers that they could get into pretty quickly. And of course, over the course, we took them on turn 1. So over the course of the game, this earned us 20 IPCs.
Yeah.
There's your 2 fighters.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so what was it? End of US 2? Is that when that bomber landed down there? I think it is.
I think so. Yeah.
No, not US 2. It must have been 3. Because we created that trap for them to come down. And what's funny is that they kind of fell for it, but then didn't go after they fell into the trap, which was C-Zone 48, right? They kind of fell into this trap anyway, but then they didn't take advantage of it and send the fighters down here to kill these guys while they were doing it. So this to me, if there was a move that they made that I think was a critical game-ending error, this was probably it. I mean, this was very difficult for them to recover from. So
yeah,
that was probably the toughest bit. Once this fleet is sunk, once the Japanese fleet is sunk, it's a pretty tough road for the Japanese to try to hang on.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. We only got time for a couple more questions here. Let's go back side by side and. Hey, John Bosch, being a great moderator. Gary has tons of 1942.2 videos, not just on basic concepts, but also on openers, strategies, histories, collectability, and of course, like a metric ton of rules videos. This is kind of how I cut my teeth and kind of learned how to make these kind of videos, is by making how to play videos for Axis and Allies. And the very first video that we did was the full how to play for 1942 second edition. And I happened on here Larry Harris's email. I'm going to tell this story real quick. I happened on Larry Harris's email, and I had just finished the draft for the 1942 second edition full how to play. It's an hour and 20 minutes long. I made a feature-length film on how to play Axis and Allies. And don't get me wrong, I'm very happy with how the video turned out, but like that's 3 years ago, and I've been working at this pretty steadily since then. So that video could probably use a refresh. But anyway, so I sent the video to Larry Harris on a whim, like maybe whatever. There's no way he's going to respond. But he emailed back the next day and said that he had sat down and watched the video all the way through and loved it and thought that it was great and really wanted to, was really gracious and offered to do an interview. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. So here's this, like, I think at that point I had like 120 subscribers, and they were all like people I went to high school with. And so it was like that we were nobody in the world. And here he was offering to do an interview with us. And it really was what kind of put us on the map and kind of started us moving forward and starting to pick up new subscribers and starting to build up, people and giving us a chance to do different stuff. So we're really grateful to Larry. And I emailed back and forth with him just the other day, and he sends his congratulations to us for the success of the videos, and is super excited to see everybody so interested in the game. And we're really excited about we're really excited about that too. So very cool. So thank you for the shout out, John, and thank you for moderating in the chats today. No, go ahead, Shane. Go ahead, and you can link the 42 online Discord. I don't care. That's fine. I don't know who runs that, and let me just be really clear. This is not an endorsement of that thing. I just know that it exists, and if Shane wants to share it out there, then that's perfectly fine with me. Dean, thanks for joining us. We talked quite a bit about this a little bit earlier. You can catch it in the replay. It was weird, I'll say that, but we talked more about why it was weird earlier. So, oh, here's a good one. Is there anywhere to go for information about the Wilder Kentucky tournament? Yeah, give me 1 second, and I should be able to pull that link up for you. It's a little bit of an odd. Yeah, here it is. So he's had this URL forever, but this is where you can go for information about Gen Con and for the Wilder event and some other events. This is Greg Smorey's website. Smorey Swamp is what it's called. And so this is where you can go to check that out and learn more. I don't think, unfortunately, that he's updated any of the information with what happened at Gen Con in 23. I know Greg just got a new job. He retired from a previous career and now is a high school teacher. And so like he's now living the life of a high school teacher, which is hectic for sure. So he's kind of getting pulled in a couple of different directions, but I know that he's excited about what he's got on the calendar for 24. So. All right. No, whatever your name is, you're amazing. Thank you. All right. Well, I think, let's see. I think that is where this is probably a good place to, do you have any other thoughts, Doug, before we wrap it up here?
No, I'm good. Yeah.
All right. So round 4 is the finals, which is amazing. We're super excited to have been played in the finals. We ran into 2 guys, John and Adam, very nice guys out of the Chicago area, and they are really pretty good players. And we had never seen them before because they have never played in a tournament before. And yet here they are in the finals of the World Championship for Axis and Allies. That does not happen by accident. So we're really excited to bring you that game. I still have a mountain on top of mountains worth of work to do for that video. So that may end up, and I hope everybody's okay with this, that video may end up being a 2-part episode. Because we may have a special surprise in that episode. So it may end up being 2 parts. So I hope everybody's cool with that. There'll be a cliffhanger, such as it is. So, but awesome. Well, guys, thank you very, very much for all the support over the last couple of weeks and watching the videos and subscribing, all the new subscribers, everybody who's been here since my first 120 subscribers, my first 1,000 subscribers. Super grateful for all the support as we've learned and grown and made and tried new things, videos with a million movie clips in them and and different strategies or different how to plays or different unboxing videos or whatever. So it's been an interesting journey, and I'm so grateful to have such a really wonderful community of citizens of Board Game Nation, as it were. So thank you all very much for being here. And we will see you next week. Doug, thank you very much for being here and for taking the long flight and making it back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm starting to hit a wall here.
Yeah, I know. I get it. I'm with you. An hour, man, I didn't realize we were gone this long. It's an hour and a half. Chris Topher, thank you very much. Oh man, you get the applause and the glockenspiel.
He gets both.
You get both for $20. Oh, I got a whole list of sound effects here. I will certainly stand here for another hour and make these random noises. Doug, you can go ahead and go. I'm just going to stand here and make weird noises for money. I hope that's cool with everybody. All right, awesome. Well, Christopher, thank you very much for doing that. And it is probably, it might be warmer in Alaska right now than it is in Memphis. We've had, well, not today, but earlier this week it was 8 degrees. My mom's in Wisconsin. It was -4. So I don't know what the temperature is in Alaska, but it's been pretty cold here. So we've got all your Arctic weather. So awesome. Well, thank you, Chris, and again, thank you, John, for moderating today and being a good friend and supporter of the community. So that is awesome. So yes. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you very much. I'm going to go fall down now so that I can get back up tomorrow morning early and start working on the video for the finals. So awesome. Thank you so very much. We will we'll talk to you again soon. Good night.
Bye.